my day starts in the GitHub Copilot app, where I ask for a list of top issues and feedback we've actually gotten. And it looks like the app has surfaced 3 or 4 issues that we might want to take a look at. Coding agents are writing much of my code, and my new bottleneck is managing all these coding agents. The app enables me to manage a team of agents, all while having deep integration with the GitHub platform. Now I can take each of these issues and go fire off parallel sessions to explore what might be going on. Each of these sessions is running in its own isolation. The changes in one agent session won't impact the changes in another session. I spent a lot of time in plan mode with the model on the right approach. I can refine this plan by asking the model some more questions. I can review all of the file diffs that the agent has changed in a particular turn. I can select a particular diff and I can ask for a change. I see that I have code review comments from Copilot and a failed CI check. Normally what I might do is copy and paste these things back in as prompts and say, please fix these things. But I'm going to use agent merge. So I'm just going to enable this toggle. And now the app is going to pull this PR and monitor it to make sure that all of the code review comments that are valid are addressed, and that we actually go ahead and resolve these CI failures. Before tackling these 5 issues would have been my whole day. Now it was just a prompt to Copilot to go and create 5 sessions. I can spend a lot more time thinking about what should we build and how should we build it.
Hello world! It is bright and early 7 a.m. here, but we're going to try to bring the energy. Drop where you're joining us from. We're doing it for all of you over on the other side of the world. So we want to make sure that you're also awake and here for this amazing session that we're going to be kicking off. Christopher, how do you feel?
I'm hanging in there. I'm a little tired. I got a little coffee off to the side here, but really good. So yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you happen to be. I'm Christopher Harrison.
I'm Ayan Gupta.
And we're here to talk a little bit about GitHub Copilot app.
Awesome. So let's jump right in. The main part of today is actually a workshop that Christopher has put together for us, but we want to start a little bit with the foundation. And it wouldn't be a foundation without some history, without a trip down memory lane. And code completions, or rather code line completions is where we started. I remember that when this first came out, I was still in college, and my TAs didn't really know what it was. I'd sit in office hours and just use it, and they'd be like, wow, you're like just, you know, the next Bill Gates or something.
Vibing along, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're my TA watching, you know, shh. You know. But since then, you know, a lot has changed from just line completions. It's actually become a core part of the software development lifecycle. And we're now transitioning over. We're in this cool transition phase, actually, where agents are no longer just tooling, but they are becoming something that integrate with us as team members. And I think that's the next phase that we're kind of already dipping our toes into a little bit. Mm-hmm. And we see how that will actually come to fruition over the next few years, but we are still straddling that line a little bit. So that's our goal, is to actually discover and dive into that with the workshop. So hang around, real interesting stuff. So this is a little bit about what I was talking about. There's essentially 4 parts to the whole life cycle. There's planning, building, reviewing, and shipping. With initial chat agents, they would help with the planning. You know, it was just like having another person to talk to. And then the building, reviewing, shipping, all of those have come into the picture. But oftentimes, as you know, if I had planned this with Christopher better, maybe I would have like done like a wave with you. You know, it is literally a wave because it is literally a wave because all these tools have come in, but the integrations still do not exist. So oftentimes it's like working with multiple different tools and features. Context gets lost along the way. So there's still a lot of heavy lifting we're doing as, you know, the manager of these agents of sorts, trying to orchestrate all these different agents doing these different things, or reviewing the agents. I mean, agents put out code at an incredible rate, but being able to stay on top of it and actually, you know, understand what's going on, it's a nightmare sometimes.
I mean, it is. But you know, one thing I always like to point out about like this flow in this slide is that even though things have changed greatly over the last couple of years, like you put up the original slide showing Copilot first being launched back in 2021, which was only about like 5 years ago. Like that's a relatively short period of time, but a lot has changed over that. But even though a lot has changed, a lot still stays the same. That the way that we wrote code before we had AI is we planned out what it is that we wanted to do, we built it, then we went ahead and reviewed it, got teammates come in and review that, and then eventually we went ahead and shipped it. And now what we've done is we've incorporated AI agents into this. So that way I'm working with my AI agent to put together that plan. What do we want to build? How do we want to build it? Then we're actually getting in and building that out. And then we get to that review phase. We'll go and review all the code and then eventually ship it. And the dial is going to change that on some of that, I'm going to be a little bit more like hands-on, that on like the planning phase, I'm going to really like lean in and really try and point Copilot what it is that I want to do. And then once we settle on that plan, I'll probably let Copilot then do a bit more building there and let it start to go in and write the code. And then I'll come back in and do a bit more on the review side. And then we'll kind of work together to ship. And again, that might also vary. That maybe I'm going to work with Copilot, let it build out more of the plan, let kind of it do more of the ideation, and then I'll do more of the code writing, or again, some combination thereof. But that core fundamental of that plan, build, review, and then ship, that still remains the same. It's just how those waves work, how those dials work, is what's going to vary as we go through everything.
Yeah, and I love how you put it that all the parts stay the same. We've just expedited the process, the timeline in which these things happen. And honestly, I enjoy it a lot more because it means I get to actually spend time on the fun parts.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
All right, Christopher?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, and I'm looking kind of down here at the screen, which gets a little bit small down there, but here is really what this is all about when it comes to Copilot, is we want to meet you where you're at. And that's a phrase that I say quite a bit, like meet the developer, meet you where you're at, because your flow is what's most important. And so if you feel most comfortable in the CLI, if you feel most comfortable in a dedicated app, if you feel most comfortable inside your IDE, we want to make sure that you're having that great experience regardless of where you are. So it's that one GitHub Copilot, and then just different harnesses, different facades, depending on where you are. So if you're working inside of VS Code, if you're working inside of Visual Studio, you're working inside of JetBrains, there's Copilot inside of there, between code completion and then chat, of course, baked into that. If you like working inside the CLI, you have access to Copilot CLI, and you can do everything inside of there and access agents and so forth inside of there. If you have maybe like a really well-defined task that you want to be able to kick off in the cloud, then you can use Copilot Cloud Agent and just simply assign an issue to Copilot and let Copilot go out and build that in the background for you. And then, of course, Copilot App, which is the newest member of the family, I guess, as it were, that we're going to be talking about today, which I think kind of brings everything together in a very AI first, Copilot first, agent first type of view. So that way I can work a bit more directly with the agent, but also be able to very easily see what's going on GitHub. So I can see my issues, I can see my pull requests, and get some really great integration inside of there. That, if I'm being honest here, because I'm an old, there, I said it, let's just be done with it there. And so I've sort of developed like my own habits and my own routines. And I was VS Code through and through, like for many years. And I've really been very surprised at how quickly I've adopted Copilot CLI. And then now that Copilot app is here, it's where I'm spending the vast majority of my time. And so I'm really surprised at how fast I've sort of like shifted my flow into using the Copilot app. But again, regardless of where you are, there's a tool, there's a version of Copilot that's available to you.
Yeah, and just like you, I started in my choice of IDE, then the CLI, and now I'm in the app, and I feel like I just perpetually live in the Copilot app. It's just like, when I heard of it, I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm actually going to like it, but it made an impression for sure. And that actually comes back to how we're bringing it all together. So like I mentioned, we have these like intersecting waves. Wow, we should like really just make this into a dance class or something. So we have these intersecting waves, and our goal is to flatten the line such that agents are working alongside you for the whole process. You're not losing context along the way, and everything is streamlined. And the Copilot app is the first step towards that for many steps, but it's a very large step towards that. And hopefully you'll see throughout today how actually the Copilot app is able to bring all these bits and pieces together under one roof to make our lives easier as developers and make it easier for agents actually. It's actually a huge cost optimization because now these different agents are working together in an efficient manner without having to reread context or relearn what you're working on.
Yeah, and with that slide up kind of real quick there, that plan mode, I know I've hit this a couple of times already, but it bears repeating how important that plan mode is specific to that, because if you spend time on planning and you really iterate through that and you very clearly define, hey, these are the requirements, this is what we're going to do, and more importantly, this is how we're going to do it. Now, when it comes time to build it, it's going to be able to build that much better because you've clearly defined what it is that you're doing and how it is that you're doing that. And on top of that, if you decide to go in and start choosing model, and of course with Copilot, you have access to like all the models depending on the plans and so forth that you're going to be using, then what you can do is use a more powerful model like Opus 4.8 or GPT 5.6 or Gemini 3.1 to go ahead and do that planning, which is going to be maybe a bit more involved. And then once you've defined all of that, now you can break out a lighter weight model to actually write the code. So again, when it comes time to think about like cost saving and so forth, it gives you that flexibility to invest the time up front, plan that out, and then when it comes time to just write that lower level code, I can use a lesser model there. So again, that planning, super, super, super important. Cannot stress that enough.
I loved how you highlighted that point, and actually that was one of my first mistakes when using AI. I was like, I want to build a website, do this, and it was the most vague command in the world.
Yeah.
But now I've realized that AI is not so different than actually just working with another co-engineer, for example, and there is reward in that specificity. There's less back and forth, and that upfront time actually just saves not just money, but such a headache as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When we get into the workshop here in a couple of minutes, that's one of the big points that we'll be making and spending some time on is context and how important that context is to getting the code that you want.
Awesome. Yes. Speaking of context, we'll dive into the context of the app. What is this app? Put in the chat real quick if this is the first time you're hearing of it, or if you have AI experience, tell us what AI tools you've used. We'd love to hear. But one of the very first cool things about the app is delegating to agents. Initially, AI used to be a very one-sided or a single stream chat window, right? You would just chat back and forth, you get some ideas, but now you can have multiple agents running in parallel. You can hand off quote-unquote busy work to agents. You're able to work from any stage of a project, whether it's an issue, a prompt, a PR, or like you said, we're just planning and ideating. So really, this is an introduction of that idea that you have a whole team of agents working in parallel with you as an orchestrator of these agents. So that's one of the first most powerful features I would actually say of the Copilot app. It's one of the key highlights of being able to easily see everything that's going on with all the agents you have working. And speaking of all these agents that are working, it can sometimes become a mental overhead to understand where do I need to come in as a human being, as the core orchestrator, to help my agents, make progress. So we have the central inbox. The central inbox is like an Outlook, except for Copilots. That's where you go to know where are they stuck, where does it need your approval, where do you come and provide input. And I actually didn't know about this for some time, and now that I've learned about it, it's made my life so much easier.
Yeah, I think that's true universally, that with anything new, it takes a little bit of just like poking around and discovering new things. And hopefully, as we go through this, there'll be some little things that we can point out along the way that maybe aren't even mentioned in the workshop. So that way, as you're viewing this, you're getting a little bit extra out of the experience here.
Absolutely. Yeah, the thing with AI is just moving so fast. I feel like every other week, or not even, maybe just every week, I'm just learning new ways to use it in a more efficient manner.
Yep.
Okay, this has to be one of my favorites, canvases. The way it was pitched at Microsoft Build, I was like, okay, I'm not quite fully sold on it, but now I'm sold. Like, I am a huge Canvas fan. I make canvases for everything. And the reason is because it's just such a human-friendly way to interact with Copilot. And especially for tasks which are repeatable, or for tasks which you feel like just require a deeper level of engagement with your agent. And I'm actually going to switch over to my Copilot app because I want to show you a few different canvases that I've built just for fun. So
Make sure you exit out of the slides.
oh, yes, I need to exit out of the slides.
There you go.
Hold up, no, I think. Okay, now hopefully we can pull it up on screen. There it is. So I made my own personal website back when I was in college, and it was sitting essentially non-updated.
I think everybody's got a handful of those. Put in chat how many domain names you currently own for some project that you went, oh yeah, I'm absolutely going to do this, and have yet to start actually doing. Or actually maybe don't, because I don't want to have to admit how many domains I've actually registered and then never gone back
No,
to.
I think I'm like a domain name collector. If anyone wants to trade with me, maybe we can like set up like a trading network of domain names.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to catch them all.
So this is Site Studio. This is essentially a way for anyone to create a site. And there's a few different templates I have, like a developer portfolio, a speaker site, founder site, designer site. And it still works with Copilot coding agent hand in hand, but now I have a lot more of a systems-oriented way to interact with it in a very procedural manner, a repetitive manner, so I can get expected results every time. So we have a little Kanban board here, but more importantly, we have this whole content section which I've outlined. So depending on the template you choose, you can put in content, and it's essentially a repeatable manner to create a site with almost, I would say, arguably a single click. After you do that single click, of course, you can go back and forth as many times as you want, but you know, it's a great starting point.
Yeah, that canvas, at the end of the day, it's a lot like just having an embedded app or an applet, if that were still used anymore, but right inside of the GitHub Copilot app. And so you can use it for things like this. I really like having them for just like my own bit of dashboards. That way I can see like maybe what's the most recent build status or what's our deploy status and those types of things, and be able to very quickly see and interact with all of that, and then quickly bring that context into Copilot to get Copilot working on the right thing.
Absolutely, yeah, and I also, it's resuming the session because I didn't touch it for some time, but I had a modernization canvas. I mean, modernization of old Java applications, .NET applications, it's just such a big task. So maybe I'll come back to it later if we have time, but it's just such a human-friendly way to interact with the things that we already do. And with canvases, if you would like, I actually added my canvases to Awesome Copilot. If you go to Awesome Copilot, you can find them under Canvas extensions, and you can also add your own. So the thing about canvases is that they're reusable elements. So once you invest time in one, it becomes a permanent asset as part of your workflow.
Yep, and you can find Awesome Copilot at awesome-copilot.github.com, and it will take you to that lovely page, and you'll find a whole bunch of great resources on there as well.
Yes. All right, so let's jump back to the slides. So that was canvases, and then of course, reviewing and merging, I mean, that's where GitHub started.
Yep.
Right? These are back to the roots of GitHub. So that's actually part of the integrated story and the integrated experience that the Copilot app is trying to bring to the table for all of us as developers, is everything is right there in the app. And to me, this is one of the most important, because when I used to work with agents, I'd have to have another tab open with GitHub, and then, you know, it was even just mental clutter, but now it's all within the same context window, even for us as humans, not just agents, but
exactly. Yeah, because like everybody's had that, it works on my machine, where you ran all the tests and you ran the linting and everything worked perfectly locally. And then you go ahead and make the PR, and now all of a sudden the continuous integration is failing. So all that's now failing on the repo. And so now you get that error message by like digging into the actions log, and then you paste that in. And this is something that Pierce was talking about. And now with Copilot app, it can manage all of that for you. So you literally just hit a button, it will go ahead and make the PR, and then it will just shepherd the PR from there. So it will look for any failures, and if it finds any, it will then go ahead and resolve those. And on top of that, going back to the review process, it will even look for comments from other developers, or maybe Copilot code review, and see those, and then start to make the appropriate updates to resolve those comments as well. So it then just shepherds that and manages that for you as well, just making that much simpler.
Yeah, and the key point here is just context. It has almost a world view of everything that's going on.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and one of my favorite is automated workflows as well, because, I mean, even here at GitHub and Microsoft, so many of us are using automated workflows to actually streamline the work we do, whether it's to check our inbox and give us a report in the morning, to help us summarize the work that we've done, but even if you're a developer, right, like running report scans or analysis or whatever else you need. I mean, do you have a creative way that you've used a workflow automated?
So I have a couple, and honestly, they're all cribbed from my wonderful skip level Ashley, who actually wrote a blog post relatively recently about this, where what she does is she has a whole bunch of automations that will look through email and go, okay, well, here's all of the outstanding tasks, or maybe with Slack integration of hey, what are all the different things that I committed to? Give me a list of those so that way I don't accidentally forget them. And she has 40 or so of them, and I've cribbed a couple of those. And what I really like is, because I'm going to be a little honest here, is when issues are assigned to me in GitHub, this is going to be between us, okay? Just between us here. Sometimes when issues are assigned to me in GitHub, I don't always see them. Okay, I said it. All right, it's a problem that I have, that unfortunately I just don't always go to that issues tab. But now, since I'm spending so much time in Copilot app, what I have is a workflow in Copilot app that will automatically look through my issues board for me. And so if there's something that's already been closed, or a PR that's been merged or otherwise, it will just go ahead and dismiss that notification for me. And then it will go ahead and triage all of the other ones for me of hey, these are really, really important, or hey, this one's been sitting here for 3 weeks. If you're not going to do anything with it, at least say something, and those types of things. And so I really like having that just embedded right in. And there's a few others that I use as well that will help automate different PRs. So as we all know, you really need to keep on top of your NPM packages, making sure that things are up to date for security purposes. And again, that can sometimes be a little bit tricky to handle. So I've got a couple of automations that really help me out with that can kind of bring those together into one bigger PR, or do a couple of other additional tasks that I oftentimes would have to do manually. So yeah, so there's a lot of different places where I've found myself using automations.
Yeah, and one of the things about automations was I first didn't really understand what to do, but I just literally used Copilot. I was like, here is what I want to do in plain, simple English, and it engineered an automation for me.
Yeah.
And in general, what I've seen with the Copilot app is it's extended way beyond just software development for me. I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and I've used it to write grants. And we have gotten grants because it can go out and do research of everything out there in the world and really just target and tailor the writing for that specific grant. And I think a big learning around this for me has been, sometimes with AI, you have to put in that initial work up front, but there are huge rewards in terms of future time savings. And I've seen that to a huge extent.
I love it.
All right, so that being said, we're going to roll to a quick video of Evan, and then we'll jump into the workshop.
Let's do it.
The GitHub Copilot app has been our opportunity to rebuild and reimagine GitHub from the ground up in an agent-first way. 6 a.m., crack open my laptop, wake it up, I go make the pot of coffee. By that time, my daily jobs are done, and then I review the output of all of them. Over here, you can see I have all of this stuff, lots of different issue triage workflows, but my favorite one is this morning brief. Right from the get-go, I have this list of stuff that I can go and look at, a concise summary, the top 5 things I need to go get done today. Right here, I'm seeing a bug. I'm going to actually go and crack that open inside of a session and make sure that the engineer who opened the PR is unblocked, ready to go by the time he gets online. As soon as we launched, the volume of communication that's coming in has been impossible for me to keep up with. I'm in Teams, I'm in Outlook, I'm in Slack. I have so many different communication channels to manage that it's really hard to stay on top of. Rather than having to read through 100 messages and figure out which are the 10 that are really high priority for me to stay on top of, a couple of times a day, I can have this WorkIQ MCP server workflow run, produce a report for me. It's already filtered down to the highest priority stuff. The GitHub Copilot app feels like I'm partnering with agents instead of chasing them. Through these workflows, I can describe how I want to work, help it sift through all of the noise, and only surface the things to me that really need my attention. The GitHub Copilot app has brought the joy back to work for me.
I really like how that ended with bringing the joy back. That, you know, when I think about getting in and writing code in a lot of situations, there's just that initial just like tedium, especially when you're like starting a project, that, you know, so many times what you're having to do is just like create all of this plumbing and define all of your different data types and things like that. Like, this is not exciting. This is not what I became a developer for. And so now, like, I can just go, hey Copilot, this is what I want to do, and then it can start to create that initial structure, and then I can just iterate and build from there and really just let my imagination run wild. So.
Absolutely. Like, I feel like the power, I feel like a kid sometimes again.
Yeah.
I mean, the creativity in my tool chest is just expanded because these small bits and pieces, I mean, Copilot is incredibly intelligent, so it's able to overcome them, and really, I can just be the mastermind behind, like, this is the problem I want to solve, this is how I want to do it, and bring all this creativity back. And I think it was Henson Huang who said that in this world of agents, as human beings, we now have the mission or the task to actually innovate faster and make the world a better place at a faster speed than ever. It's not that we don't need less people to do the work, but rather we just have more room for innovation.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, what do you say we get at it?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Let's go for it. Okay. So what we're going to do for the next about hour, I think we got 63 minutes according to my watch. What we're going to do for the next hour is walk through the GitHub Copilot app workshop. Now, a couple of real quick things that I want to make sure that I highlight right away. Number one is notice the URL that's on the screen, and you can go ahead and bring that up in the background here while I'm sort of babbling. But I want to make sure that I highlight two real quick things. Number one is that this workshop will be available in perpetuity, and that link that you're seeing right there will always work. So just take a screenshot of that short URL. That will always work, and you'll always have access to this. So if you're not able to complete the entire workshop in the next hour or so, that is totally fine. You'll still have access to this. Number two is there is going to be a little bit of local setup that does need to be done. So you are going to need to install Node locally. That the app that we're going to be using is an Astro app. Astro is one of my favorite web frameworks. And you're also, of course, going to need to install the GitHub Copilot app, and you'll need to install Git. And the prerequisites page inside of the workshop does highlight all of that, so you can kind of start to go through that and install that. And we'll make sure that we sort of like vamp for a little bit, just to give you a bit of time to do all the installation. Chances are you probably already have Git and Node if you've been developing for a little while, but just to make sure that that you have all of that. So that's that short URL, and then what that URL is going to bring up is going to be this little lovely page that's actually built by Astro for the GitHub Copilot app. So the first little screen here, GitHub Copilot app, walks through all the various lessons, and this is what we're going to be doing. And so what you're going to notice on the prerequisites is three main prerequisites. Number one is you will need a GitHub account that has Copilot, either Student, Pro, Pro Plus, Business, or an Enterprise plan. So you are going to need to have access to GitHub Copilot. The next thing, of course, is a system that's running some popular operating system, macOS, Linux, Windows. And then last but not least is, again, you will need to have Git installed. You will notice that that is a link to Git, so that way you can just go ahead and and install that straight away. So there's your link to there. Now, if I scroll back up here real quick, we'll notice the different lessons. And then I hit 0 for prerequisites. And then this is going to walk you through the last couple of items here. So you will be installing Node as well. So you can head on over to Node.js, install Node, and then you can just make sure that you have that installed there. Now I'm going to pause here for just a moment to kind of let everybody work in the background. But I do want to make sure that we do highlight that, again, we only have an hour. And there's a whole bunch of people that are watching, a lot more that are watching than we have here. So we are going to need to kind of keep moving. So if you do fall behind, again, we have everything still available. This will be available in perpetuity, so you can always come back to this in the future. If you do have questions, we do have Ian right here that's going to be keeping an eye on chat. Katie, I believe, is also in the chat. Yep. I think there's a couple of other people that are in there. Yeah. Okay. So you can ask questions and so forth, and Ian will also go ahead and bubble those up to me as well.
Yes, and we love all the questions coming in, and I think much of it will be answered today. Like, for example, Ritesh was asking, can we integrate with Jira? And we're going to be talking about MCP.
Yes.
And how that is actually possible and how we're able to integrate with all these different tools and technologies beyond just what traditionally was possible.
Exactly. Yeah, that if you have any external services or otherwise, you can absolutely do that. Yep. Okay. So next up, after you've installed Node, and don't worry about the little Docker there. After you've installed Node, then if I scroll down, the next thing is to set up the repository that we're going to be using. So what we're going to be using is the Tailspin Toys repository. Let me just go ahead and copy and paste that here. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. By the way, sound effects help. When you're going in and poking around on here. It's a scientific fact. You know, it's sort of like when you're turning the wheel on a car and you need to make like a really tight turn and you're making that sound effect to help. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's science. It helps. Okay, so from here, what you're going to do is you're not going to fork this repository. That typically when you fork a repository, the expectation is that you're eventually going to make contributions back to here. This is going to be your own separate copy. So instead, you're going to select Use this template from the upper right, and then choose Create a new repository. Give this just a second here. OK, so now, your exact screen is going to vary a little bit depending on where you are and what it is that you're doing and so forth. This is what my screen is going to look like, but the big notes are still going to remain the same. So the big note is going to be right here under General. You'll notice your owner, and if you drop this down, you will notice inside of there will be your handle. So just drop that down and then choose your GitHub handle from there. Then it's going to ask you for a repository name. And so you can just specify Tailspin Toys. I think I already have one. Yeah. So I'm just going to call mine Stream. But you'll be able to just simply use Tailspin Toys inside of there. So there's your handle, and then Tailspin-Toys as the repository name. You don't need Stream. I do because I already had a copy of that. Stream. There we go. OK. So once you've got that set, then you can go ahead, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then select Create Repository. Chugga, chugga, chugga. And this will create your repository. OK, cool. Now, this repository that's been created for you has the application that we're going to be using. So the scenario is that you are a developer at Tailspin Toys. Tailspin Toys does crowdfunding for board games with a DevOps theme, because I know what everybody wants to break out on game night is a DevOps-themed board game, right?
You have me hooked. You have
Excellent.
me hooked.
Excellent. Fantastic. So yeah, so this is our multi-million-dollar idea is right here. So in any event, so that's what you're going to be working on, and as part of this template, if I select issues, this will automatically create a handful of issues here. There's actually like 8 different issues that are created. We're going to be focused in, though, on 3 issues in our workshop. So I just want to highlight that we do have 8 issues that are automatically created as part of the template. We're going to be focused in on 3 of them. There's your repository. And for the right now, we can go ahead and just leave that as that is. So we've got our setup repository. Let me just kind of keep on scrolling down here. And then there's our summary and next steps. So now that we've got our repository created, the next thing that we're going to need is the Copilot app. And so if I kind of scroll on down, you're going to notice it gives us a little bit of a scenario, and then to go in and install it. So you can access this by just simply going to gh.io/app. And let me actually just open up my landing page right here. There we go. And then you'll notice the download button right there. So pretty straightforward. Boom, big button. Go ahead and give that an install. And again, we'll kind of pause here for a couple of moments and give you the opportunity to install the app. It shouldn't take but just a few moments to download and then to go ahead and install. So yeah.
When they first released this, I was like, I already have a GitHub app installed. Like, but then later I realized that it's actually not that GitHub desktop app that I had earlier.
No, not so much, not so much.
So it's an entirely different application that allows us to do all of this.
Exactly. Yeah, so you can just go ahead and download and install that. I will say, like, and this is very much just like dating myself, but there's still a part of me that's just amazed by the fact that I can download, multiple megs or even like multiple gigs in a relatively short period of time. That just still remembering like dial-up or like early days of like cable modems and DSL and how long that would take. And now it's like, whatever, it's trivial. Boom, download. Yeah.
For me, it's just slow internet speeds.
Yeah. All right. In any event, so you'll go ahead and install that, and then when you launch that for the first time, here's what's going to happen: is you'll get a screen that looks a little bit like this. So it's going to prompt you to sign into GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and select sign into GitHub. And it's automatically going to copy, it's going to stay on the screen here for just a second. It's going to automatically copy that code for me, or it should have. Let me just go ahead and then just hit the manual copy there. There we go. And then I'll select open on github.com. And then I'll go ahead and sign in, paste in my code, and then continue my sign in process here, and just like that. OK. Now, once you do that, authorization is complete. It's going to go ahead and show me a couple of repositories here. Your Tailspin toys that you just created might or might not be there. In my case, it's not, because I called mine Tailspin Toy Stream. I remember that. So I'm just going to not select anything on the right, and I'm just going to simply select continue. And then the next thing is it will allow me to select a theme here. I am going to go with light mode on the theme. I promise you, it does not matter which it is that I choose. Somebody's going to say something. So dark mode people will go make it dark mode. Light mode people will go make it light mode. We're going light mode. That's the decision.
This is my favorite page. I spent like so much time just trying to choose a theme. It's like
and everybody's got everybody's got the opinions. And by the way, since we're doing all the controversial opinions, it's tabs, not spaces, and RG GIF. So let's just establish all of that right away. Okay. Actually, did I say tabs, not spaces? I lied. No, it's spaces, not tabs. Spaces, not tabs. Okay. In any event, I'll go ahead and I'll choose just the basic GitHub theme, and then I'll go ahead and hit finish. And then voila, I am all set and now ready to start building. OK, let's pause for just a moment here, and let's just talk about a couple of things that we're seeing right here inside the GitHub Copilot app. So first thing I want to highlight is the home screen. That's this right here. And so from here, I can start brand new chats, I can add in brand new projects, and so forth. If I select my work, right now you're going to notice this is completely empty. What this will show me is any PRs, pull requests, and any issues for any repositories that I've added into Copilot app. So that's the real big thing here, is that this isn't showing me everything. It's only showing me the repositories that I've worked with inside of here, which I really like, because if you're like working on dozens and dozens and dozens of repositories, having a screen like this that's showing everything would be really overwhelming. So I really like the fact that it just automatically limits to just what it is that you're working on. I've got my automations, which we've talked a little bit about before. It actually even gives me a few little templates that I could start with, and then I can also create a brand new automation from here. And then search, last but not least, will allow me to kind of just search through the different sessions that I have and wherever else it is that I might be. So there's kind of our real quick overview. The other real quick one that I want to show, and this is kind of still following right along with the workshop, is in our quick chats. So if I hit the little plus here next to our quick chat, and let me make sure that my model is just set to auto here. Now I can go in and ask whatever question it is that I might want. And one of my biggest tips that I can give you about Copilot app is, when in doubt, ask Copilot app. So one of Copilot app's biggest features is using work trees. So whenever I go in and I say, hey, go work on this repository, and I start a brand new session, it will create a brand new work tree, which begs a very obvious question. What's a work tree? Okay, what is a work tree and how does Copilot app use them? Boom. And now I'll just ask Copilot. And this is one of my favorite little things to do, is if I'm ever not sure about how something works or where I can do something or what functionality is available, I'll just ask Copilot. And Copilot will then give me the answer. So it renamed the chat, and then it gives me a real quick overview of what a Git work tree is. And then it will tell me that in Copilot app, when I create a brand new session, it will automatically create a brand new work tree. And what that allows me to do, and this works fantastic with my brain, is if I'm already having an agent work on something, and I go, oh, wait a minute, I also want to do this, and that's not related to what I'm currently working on, I can just spin up a brand new session, and it will create a brand new work tree, so it's completely segmented, separated, and otherwise from the work that I actively have going on there.
And I think that's the most important thing that you highlighted, is that it's segmented, but it maintains all the context within that work tree.
Yes.
So it's like having literally multiple tabs open in your head, but having those clear dividers. And I think that was one of the earlier issues when we just had chat with AI agents. It was the idea that we weren't able to actually separate. It would be like, did you mean this? Because I talked about it earlier in the day, but it was actually not related at all.
Right, exactly, yeah. And a lot of times I felt like I was being put into a serial flow where I had to wait for this to complete before I could do anything else on that project. And so now I literally just spin up a brand new session. I got a brand new idea, something else I want to do, brand new session, and then away it goes from there. It's wonderful. It's probably my favorite like little feature inside. I shouldn't even say little, but it is one of my favorite little aspects to working with Copilot app. Okay, so let's go ahead and kick on back to the workshop here, and we'll scroll on down, get oriented in the workspace. There's our sessions, there's our quick chats, there's our my work, there's our automations, and then, okay, and somewhere in here we add in the repository. Okay, so let me go ahead and add that in. So I can do that by going back home, selecting add project. Actually, flip away from my screen for just a second here. Just talk for a minute. Focus in, yeah, there you go. Talk for a second.
Let's talk about agents.
Yes.
What is the coolest way that you've used an agent?
There you go.
Put it in the chat. What is, or actually not even the coolest way, what is the first time you used an agent? I can't remember the first time I used an agent or to code or even ask a question. I learned about ChatGPT, and
yep.
Actually I think I used inline completions from GitHub before I used ChatGPT. What came first? Do you remember? Anyone remember?
Inline code completion.
Inline code completion, right? That came first.
Absolutely.
Which is really interesting.
Okay. In any event, so I've added in the lab instructions to show you how to do that. But basically, in a nutshell, what you wind up doing, and now we can go back to my screen, is just say select add project, and then you can just type in your handle / and then Tailspin Toys, and you'll be able to add that in from there. So there is my brand new Tailspin Toys project right here. So now when I go back to my work, now I can see there's a couple of Dependabot PRs as sort of expected. And then if I scroll down, I can see the different issues that were automatically created. So we saw that in the repo itself. Now I can see all of that populated inside of my work. You'll notice that if I open one of these up, I'm just going to grab one. Here, it doesn't really matter which one. You'll notice that from here, I can go ahead and see the full details of that. And then I'm not going to hit the button, but right up here, I could start a brand new session. And that would then allow me to just send that off to now Copilot. So it would create a brand new session with that issue in context and then start to build out from there. OK, cool. So let's go ahead and scroll on down here. We saw all of that. There is our little quick chat. Cool. Now let's get in and run our first agent session. So now what we want to do is actually start that first big session and actually work. So each game has a star rating. But unfortunately, it doesn't appear on the list page. So it appears on the game details page, doesn't appear on the list page. So we want to get in and make that request. So we can see our little home screen. There's our Tailspin Toys. There's our repository. There's our model. And then here is the prompt that explains everything. So let me just go ahead and copy that prompt right from here. And then kick back over to my home screen. And then let's make sure that Tailspin Toys is selected. Let's make sure that auto is selected. And then let's go ahead and paste that in. Now, I'm going to hit send here just to let this start working in the background. And then I want to talk for a moment about this prompt because Ian mentioned something really important earlier, where he said that when he first started using Copilot and first started prompting Copilot, he would simply say, create a website. And if all you simply say is create a website, it's going to do it, but it might not be what you're expecting. That the analogy that I always like to go to is my partner and I woke up the other day and she says to me, hey, let's go get brunch. Fantastic. Who doesn't love brunch, right? And so I recommended a spot, and then she said, you know, here's the thing is we've been there an awful lot lately. I kind of want to go somewhere new. And that's a very common back and forth in human conversation, that a question was asked, and then based on that current context, a response was given. So the response was valid based on the information that I knew, but then more context was shared there. And so whenever we're working with AI tools, that context is really key because the AI tool is going to build based on what it knows. And if it doesn't have full context, it's going to try and fill in the blanks on its own. And sometimes it's going to make the exact right decision, and sometimes it's not going to make the right decision. And the way that I can make sure that I get what I want is by pointing it at it. So you'll notice in here that I'm being really descriptive, that, hey, we've already got a star rating field, that the display is already on Game Card Astro, but we want to make sure that this is all also going to display on the main page as well. And you'll notice that I'm calling out files and so forth. And again, Copilot could go out and it could find all of those things on its own, but if you know a piece of information, tell Copilot. The joke I always like to make is don't be passive aggressive with Copilot, that if you know something that Copilot should know, tell Copilot. And it's really going to do two things for you. Number one is it's going to generate better code. But number two is it's also going to save on tokens, because then Copilot doesn't need to go looking for it. I've pointed it at the file, so it already knows, oh, OK, that's where I need to go. So it doesn't need to search the whole project. It can go straight to there and go find that.
And one thing about the specificity is, one thing that I've learned is it's also not just about telling it what to do, but also to be explicit about what not to do. Because it is a very proactive developer, and if it thinks that, actually I should also just work on this page or make this page while I'm at it, it will do that, but it actually might just end up being work that you undo, and again, it costs you tokens that you didn't need to actually utilize.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so it's created the bit of code here, which is wonderful, and the next question then becomes, okay, well, if it's created the code, what does that code look like? So let's go ahead and see what that code looks like. So right up here, I actually have a little review toggle panel. I could also open it by selecting changes down here. I'm kind of in the habit of always hitting that icon in the upper right because there's a lot of really cool stuff that's available in that side panel there that we're going to get in and continue to explore here. And you'll notice actually the toggles on both sides. So that will toggle the right side, that will toggle the left side. So if you ever need more real estate, you can just turn those on, turn those off on the left and the right. So I'm just going to get rid of the left side for the moment because I don't really need it. And here is our file review. So I can see the update in code that it made right here. Now, I mentioned that there'll be a couple of things that we're going to highlight as we go along that aren't really in the course. This is going to be one of them. This is one of my favorite little features. Let's say that there was something in here that I wanted to change in the code. Now, this isn't necessarily the best example because, I mean, it's like 2 lines of code. But let's say I've got like a large block of code here, and I want to provide feedback to Copilot. Like I can go back to the session and I go, hey, on that file, this particular line, can you go in and can you change that? Well, I can actually do that right here in line. And it's a lot like doing a code review on a pull request that I hit the plus right here. And then I can provide feedback. So I could say, hey, could we change the color to something slightly different, maybe green? I don't know. I'm kind of making this up on the fly. I was not expecting to do this demo. So I can do this right here, and then when I hit send, what you'll notice over here on the chat on the left side is that it brought that request right in. So we were talking about those little waves there. Now it just looks like I'm like swimming. But we talked about those waves earlier where I'm doing that bit of planning and then we're doing building and then I'm doing the review. I'm now doing that review right here in line, that I'm providing that feedback directly to Copilot going, hey, this spot right here, this needs to change. So I'm making the request, and then that brought that right into context for the session, and then it went ahead and made that tweak, and then now that's updated. So it tells me right here, it updated that to green, and then I could just go back and say, hey, on second thought, green wouldn't work there, change that back. Okay, you probably wouldn't do that, but you see where this is going, and you'll see that I can have that conversation, again, just like I would if I was reviewing code on a pull request. It's one of my favorite little features there that's just sort of like, it feels like it's a little tucked away there, but yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so now I actually want to see the code. And there's a couple of different ways that I could get in and do that. But with this tab open, I'm going to go ahead and select Terminal right here. And this will now bring up a terminal window that is for this work tree. That one of the big questions that I often have whenever I'm working inside of here is like, okay, that's great, it created this work tree. Where did it create it? I don't know. So fortunately, I can just do this straight inside of here, that I can just open up a terminal window inside of here. If you do want an external terminal window, if you hit the little drop down, then you'll notice actually a few things. That you'll notice you can open it up inside of VS Code. I have Xcode installed, so I can open it up inside of there. I can open it up inside of the native terminal, or I could even open it up in iTerm, which is the terminal that I prefer on here. So that way, if I do want my own separate window, that I can go in and do that. But I could also do that inside of here, and then npm install, and then npm run dev. And this will go ahead and launch that site for me. And again, all of this is in the workshop. I am just following along inside of there. Okay. So now let me open up the website, and I can do that with command click or control click if you're on a PC, and that will now open this up right here inside of my copy of Copilot app. And this is effectively I shouldn't even say effectively, it is. It's a canvas. It's a browser canvas. And so now I can explore everything right inside of here. And this is actually going to work out perfect because as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing a change that I want to make here. Because when I look at these star ratings, it gave me text in my case. It might have given you stars.
Yeah, actually, like for me, if we want to switch over to my screen real quick, I have something entirely different. I have stars. Maybe it'll pop up. But otherwise, you can take my word. Yeah, I have stars, and I think maybe this is what you're actually going for a little bit more because this is a lot more human-friendly.
Yes.
So this, again, comes back to the specificity of the prompt that actually, as a designer, as a developer, if you're like, I want to display it out of 5 stars, you can actually add that to the prompt.
Yeah, and really to kind of keep down this path for just another moment here, you know, like let's say that we're working together, and I ask you to build something. And you come back with that first version, like you're going to be expecting feedback on that, and I'm going to go ahead and provide it, or vice versa. That if I build something, I'm going to be expecting feedback on that. And the exact same thing holds true here. That I think a lot of times we get stuck with this notion that single shot is the gold standard. Like I should be able to just one prompt, boom, and now I've got it. That's not realistic. That at the end of the day, what do I really want? I want code that works. I want code that reads well. I want good code. And that might just take a few iterations. Yes. And that's okay. That's perfectly normal. So I'm going to take advantage of that fact, that we got this. And so I'll notice right here that I've got this. And I also have this little button right up here, pick and polish. So I'm going to select that. And now this becomes just like if I was using DevTools inside of a browser, that I can now choose that. And you'll notice that that now brought that into context. And now I can say, hey, right here, this should really be stars, star graphics, rather than the numbers. Can we update that? Boop. And then go ahead and send that across. Again, the sound effects help.
Yeah, I wish we had like a suite of like Mario Kart like sound effects that we could put in, like, you know.
I think we would wind up getting like a copyright.
Probably.
Yeah. But it's a good idea. OK, perfect. And so now we can see that that update happened. So I really love that baked-in browser, and especially like this, that I've been doing web development for many years now, and I can confidently state, I don't know anything about CSS. Okay, that's I'm exaggerating. I know, like, I can kind of get around in CSS, but like writing CSS to me, a lot of times I feel like I'm like tricking the browser. I can read CSS really well, but writing it, I will oftentimes get lost. And so I love that ability right here, just to go, hey, this is what I want, and then if I'm not seeing quite what I want, I can just like hit pick and polish, and then just point Copilot like right here, this is what I want to change, and then just describe what I want it to look like.
And I think the reason pick and polish is so powerful, because before pick and polish, I mean, I would take a screenshot and use that, but now the agent has to put in so much more reasoning power to understand what is in the screenshot, where is it on the page. But now, like, this is very evidently code that you are actually referencing, and it's very straightforward for the agent to go and make edits.
Exactly, yeah. And speaking of, and we've given a couple little tips around, like, you know, providing, hey, this is the file I want you to go look at, will really help with token management. Another real big thing is like it's absolutely science fiction that I can take a screenshot, send that over to Copilot, and have it work on it. It's wonderful, it's amazing. And there are times where a screenshot is going to be the right answer. But the vast majority of the time, if I can just describe what it is that I'm looking at, that's going to be far more efficient. And that pick and polish works really well there. Okay. So now I've got all of that built out, and all of that is looking good. So let's kick back over to the workshop here, and let's kind of scroll on down. So npm run dev, and now let's go ahead and open and merge our first pull request. So I've got all my code. All of that's looking really, really good. Let me go ahead and hit the little button right up top here that says Create PR. And then we'll just give this a couple of seconds here. Actually, I did do it with that. OK, fantastic. OK, so what this is going to do is this is going to do a little bit of magic behind the scenes. And I'm kind of looking at my time, and I don't think we're going to wind up getting through the entire workshop. And if I'm being honest, I think that that's OK, because I'm sharing a lot more than we'd really be able to document in that workshop. So hopefully you're getting something extra out of this as well here. But as this is doing its thing, it's actually using something special here that's called a skill. And what a skill is think about the different tasks that you perform as a developer. And a lot of those need to follow the same set of steps. So for example, when I go to make a pull request, I probably want to look through the contribution guidelines. So that way, like I'm being a good member, team member, and making sure that I'm following the appropriate steps there. So I'm going to look through the contribution guidelines. And there might be an issue template. And so I want to make sure that I've got an issue file, or maybe look for an issue and see if this aligns with an existing issue. And then there might be a pull request template, and I want to make sure that I'm following along with that. So like there's a lot that goes into making a pull request. And so as part of this project, there's actually a skill that instructs Copilot, like, hey, anytime you go to make a pull request, follow these steps. And all of those steps then go in and say, hey, look for contribution guidelines, look for existing issues, see if they want an issue, create one, use the templates, et cetera, et cetera. So making sure that Copilot is behaving as as it should inside that repository. Remembering that it's a guest, it should follow along. OK, so now let me go ahead and hit the drop down up top there next to Ready to Merge. And now we'll notice our agent merge. So let me go ahead and turn that on. And now we're going to notice that this will allow the agent to address reviews. And this is going to be with Copilot Code Review, or if there were other team members that I have that came along and made review updates, it would go ahead and address those. Any CI failures, it would go ahead and resolve those. Any merge conflicts. Who doesn't love dealing with merge? That's my absolute favorite. And then finally, last but not least, is merge pull request. And so what merge pull request will do is it will keep an eye on things. It'll wait for my continuous integration to run. It will look for any review updates or anything like that. And once all of that completes, it will then go ahead and merge the pull request. And I can actually see that that's now purple. That's my indication that it's now merged. And so now all of that is part of that repository. OK, cool. Before I go to the next lesson, I've been talking an awful lot. Have there been any cool little questions or other thoughts or comments that you wanted to bubble up here? I'm mostly using this as an excuse to get a drink of water.
Not specifically. All of you are awfully quiet on the chat, especially given there's a few hundred of you.
We're here. We're live.
Yeah, we're
live.
live.
Like brought in a newspaper.
Maybe we could have free tokens to auction off. Yeah, no, but pretty quiet on the chat. Oh yeah, someone mentioned impeccable as a great skill to invoke for design tasks. Yes, I am a personal fan of impeccable. Impeccable, it does magic. I'm not a designer myself, but I can tell that it was designed by someone who actually has design sense.
Excellent. I honestly haven't played with impeccable yet. I guess I'll have to get in and start poking around. I've seen it, but I haven't played around with it yet. OK, now let's talk a little bit about I'm going to go with custom instructions here. I'm going to kind of kick through this a little quicker. So we talked just a moment ago about that skill to make sure that Copilot follows the existing rules for making a pull request, right? Well, you probably have some guidelines and rules around how it is that you should be writing code. And again, context is key. And we want to make sure that Copilot understands this is how we should write code. Now, Copilot is a great pattern matcher. So if it sees you doing something, it will follow along with that. But there's two problems with that. Number one is that a lot of times it's only going to be looking at a relatively small subset of your code base. And so that might not always have complete examples of how you want code to be generated there, especially if it's generating like new files. But the second thing is, if we're all being honest, there's some part of our code base that we're really proud of, and then there's some part of our code base that we really hope that nobody else sees. And unfortunately, Copilot can't always distinguish what it is that you're really, really proud of and what it is that it should maybe steer away from. So with instructions, I can then more clearly define, this is how I want my code to be created. And so there's a couple of different types of instructions files, and you'll notice that we list off some best practices on how to get in and do that. But let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to, where do I want to go? I want to go here. Let me bring in my files here. I'm just going to click on Files up top here. I'm just going to use this one right here. And then I'm going to open up .github, and then I'm going to scroll on down, and I'm going to open up my Copilot instructions here. So let's just kind of roam through this. And what I want you to notice about Copilot instructions is that it's just a markdown file. And so it explains in the markdown how it is that I want my coding and my project to be managed. And as I scroll through this, what you're going to notice is that it's relatively high level. We're painting in broad strokes here. And you'll notice that we're like pointing it at important scripts. You'll notice that we're giving it information about like how we're using TypeScript 7 and so forth and so on. So we've got a lot of just like high level broad strokes here. And then if I open up my instructions folder here, what I'm going to notice is that now I have very specific instructions. So I have instructions that are specific now to Astro. And if I look here, I'm going to highlight the bit of header matter. Actually, I'm going to go into the source mode because it'll show up a little bit better here. So here's the header matter inside of that astro.instructions.md file. And notice that applied to. So this automatically applies to all Astro files. And so now in here, I can get very specific and provide examples and so forth of this is how I want my Astro files to be built. And you'll notice that if I open up my Playwright instructions, that this is now specific to only files that end with .spec.ts. And if you're not already familiar with Playwright, it's a wonderful end-to-end web testing framework. And so this now describes how I want that to be written. And again, getting very prescriptive inside of here. So that Copilot instructions, this is always going to be used, and then these specific instruction files are then only going to be used in those specific instances where the file that Copilot is working on matches, that pattern matches that slug. So that really helps Copilot understand how you want your code to be created. So going back to the theme of the workshop here, let me go to my work. And let me go find the issue here about coding standards. There it is. Update our coding standards. So I select that, and then it gives full instructions like, hey, here's all the different things that we want. Let me create a brand new session off of that. We'll go ahead and hit that. And now that will create that brand new work tree. It's pointing at that issue. Let me just sort of like rearrange a little bit, make things a little bit more visible. There we go. So you'll notice right there, that issue number 8, that's showing me that that's now in context. So now I can go ahead and say, hey, let's get our instructions files updated to match what is highlighted in this issue. And I think the prompt might be a little bit different in the actual exercise, but we're close enough.
Yeah.
We're close enough. OK. So we'll give this just a few moments here.
Yeah, and while it's thinking, there was a question in the chat. They were asking, is there a way to do remote desktop and control the Copilot desktop app? So there's not really remote desktop, but there is a really cool mobile app. And sometimes I find myself, probably as I leave the studio, I'm just going to kick some work off or resume some work or just provide my input on the app. And when I get home, it'll be done.
Yeah. But there is also, there is a /remote that's available in CLI. And I know that it is somewhere inside the app. I'd have to, hold on. I could actually just do this. Hey, how do I enable remote? And so what this will do is it will actually allow it to run here, but still be accessible from your phone. And I've used this a couple of times in the past where I will kick it off and then I will like go on about my day, and then I'll be like sitting around with nothing to do at the moment, and I'll just open up my app. Yeah, there you go. And then go, oh, okay, cool. Now can you go ahead and do this? So like just continue to prompt Copilot remotely there. So yeah, there you go. See, when in doubt, just ask Copilot. All right, let's come back over here. And that was a perfect length of time because just like that, it went ahead and finished. So now it tells me, hey, it updated the instructions docs to now reflect the issues coding standards. It highlighted this, and so forth and so on. So now what I could do is I can review and test this in a couple of different ways. So one of the ways, of course, that I can do this is I can click on that changes, and now I can go in and review the changes here. And this is something that you'll absolutely want to make sure that you spend a lot of time on. That asking Copilot to generate that initial version of the instructions is wonderful. It's really powerful. And in fact, you could say, hey, go look at my repository and generate a set of instructions based on what you see here. There's also a lot of instructions that you can copy and paste from Awesome Copilot. One of the other things, speaking of like Ask Copilot, that I love to do, because Awesome Copilot has just hundreds of instructions files that are available. And so I actually like to just ask Copilot, hey, go look at awesome copilot.github.com for any instructions files that would work here and bring them in. And just go ahead and send that, and that will allow it to go off and like pull all of that down, which is like a great starting point. But note that phrasing here, that's a great starting point. Same thing if I just had Copilot generate it manually like I did here. It's a great starting point. I want to make sure that I review this, because this is going to have a profound impact on the code that Copilot is going to generate from now on. So if there's a mistake in here, then that's now going to propagate elsewhere. So always want to review our code. Absolutely mandatory that you also be reviewing your instructions files as well. And if I want to see them in action, now I can just ask Copilot, hey, show me what a new TypeScript section would look like that would retrieve all games by category ID in our app. So I can just ask it, don't actually create a file, just show me. So I can just then like do a little bit of testing right here of like, now that I've made this update, okay, Copilot, show me what that's now going to look like. And so this should now, yeah, now I can see that update right here with those TS docs right inside of there. So all of that is because we updated our instructions files right here.
Yeah, and it's like a living document, because sometimes Copilot will actually do things which I never anticipated it to do. I'm like, I don't want that. So, you go and add an explicit, do not do this, but do this.
Exactly.
And I find myself always coming back to it to make those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So now that we've done that, let's just go ahead and let's just go agent merge straight away. So I'm just going to hit the little drop down. I'm just going to go agent merge and hit the button. We'll let that create it. Moving your mouse makes it go faster.
There was another question in the chat if we will be covering MCP. I believe MCP is covered later on, and if we don't get to it, like you mentioned, it's perpetually there.
Yep. Actually, you know what? I think we could go right to MCP here. Hold on one second. Let me just make sure. Okay. All right. We are going to need to do a couple of things here real quick. All right. We'll get to it.
Lightning round.
Yeah, lightning round here. Okay. So there's our agent merge here. It's creating the PR, and it's doing its thing in the background. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to take advantage of the fact that I can just create a brand new session, and let's just create a brand new session here. So let me do this. We got 17 minutes left. I think that the Playwright MCP server is such an amazing feature. I want to make sure that we get to it. So I'm going to go to my work here, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to grab the allow users to filter games by category and publisher. And I'm going to create a brand new session based on that. And I'm going to say, can you please implement this? Boop. There we go. OK. And we'll let this run in the background. So we've already seen this, that I was able to grab an issue, brought that into context, went ahead and sent a prompt. So in this case, can you please implement this? And we'll give this just a moment here to fire up.
And something I want to highlight, so I've been following along as you've been going through just as a student, and I had actually changed my model from auto to something else earlier, and I was like, why is it running slower? Because I had chosen a higher model. So if you manually choose a model, you have to manually also go back to auto. Otherwise, you'll be like, why is it taking so long?
Yes.
Why are my tokens burning through?
This is really important. That one of the big things is when I go in and I start a brand new session, let me just, and it could be anywhere. Like I go in and I hit new here, and let's just say new session in Tailspin Toys. That dropdown is always based on what your last one was. So if you want to use auto, make sure that you're selecting auto. If you're wanting to use a lower end model, make sure that you're choosing that. Make sure that you've always got that. Okay. Cool. This is going to take it just a moment here. Come on.
Okay,
right.
we have a
Yeah, go ahead.
we have a question. So it says, let's say you work on 2 repos, one for front end and one for back end. Let's say you want to add some features. Can we select 2 repos or more? Should we work with one global agent?
That's a great question. Yes, you can actually do multiple repos. So if I hit my drop down here, right now I've only got just the one, but I could actually select multiple inside of here. So those are our 2 little checkboxes. So I can go ahead and select both of those there. One of the other real big things that you can also do is, let's say that I'm solely a front-end developer, and somebody else is responsible for the back end. So I typically don't do anything there. As long as I still have access to that repo, I can still tell Copilot, hey, go look at that repo to go find whatever it is that you might be looking for, and be able to interact with it that way. So if you don't have a mono repo, if you do have them split separately, you can actually start up a session and choose multiple repos. You have to have added them in first, and then choose those multiple repos and build out that way. One other real quick thing that I want to make sure that I highlight here is Copilot doesn't need to see the source code to understand how to use something. And think about the way that you write code. Like I'm an Astro developer. I'm a Django developer. I've never read through the source code for Django. I've never read through the source code for Svelte, but I can use them. And the exact same thing holds true with Copilot. Just like you are able to use all of those cool frameworks and libraries and so forth without actually reading the source code, Copilot can do the exact same thing. So as long as it has seen somebody else using it, as long as it's seen what the signatures are, and those are hopefully logical, then it's going to be able to deduce, oh, okay, this is how I use it. So it doesn't actually need to see the source code for that. Okay. Other questions? This is taking it a minute here. So, because it's running all of my builds and lints and everything else here, which is a good thing. Yeah.
We had someone
Actually,
ask,
can you go to the 2-shot real quick here? Full 2-shot? Thank you. Stay there for a second. What were you about to say?
where to go?
There we go.
Add my chat screen. Oh, there it is. Why is it playwright.instructions and not playwright.agent?
Oh, yeah, this is a great question. And the only reason I'm sighing is because this is such a big topic, and I'm going to try and distill this down into about like 30 seconds here because we got about 13 minutes left. So there's effectively 4 ways that I can guide the way that Copilot is going to do something. I've got instructions files, I've got agents, I've got skills, and I've got MCP servers. And those first 3, agent, skills, and instructions files, are effectively all markdown. That yes, I can add scripts and other things into skills, but the core of it is still a markdown file. And that really causes a lot of confusion of like, when should I be using each? And the answer is it kind of depends. And if we're being honest, I think we're all still like trying to truly figure that out because so much of this is brand new. Like skills didn't exist like 7 months ago, and now here they are. So here's the way that I approach it, and I actually wrote a blog post on this, is I use instructions files for how I want my code to look. I use skills for lower level tasks. So like creating a PR, running my who's and what's it's, running my tests, maybe upgrading a React file from doing class-based to function-based or anything like that. So that might be a low-level skill that I would have. My agents I use for higher-level operations, and then my MCP servers, anything that's going to be external to Copilot. So to answer the question specifically, the instruction file that you saw there, now we can come back to my screen. Let me just bring that, let me bring up my files again here. Instructions and Astro instructions or playwright instructions. This here is focused on how I want to write the file. So not how I want to run the tests, but rather how I want to write the file. So that's the way that I approach all of those. And so that's why it's an instruction file rather than an agent. But that being said, like I might have an agent that's responsible for looking at my project holistically and identifying, hey, these are the different places where we're missing playwright functionality, and might be responsible for then calling the skill that's going to run those, and then it would wind up using the instructions files to then create brand new playwright tests. So that's where I draw the dividing line. And honestly, the biggest reason that I try to differentiate those that way is because I find it makes my life that much easier. Like if I've already made the decisions about how I'm going to organize things, then I could just put things in those places and then not have to think about it ever again. It's sort of like putting your car keys always in the exact same spot every single time so that way you don't always have to think about it. It's a lot like that. Now, I'm actually terrible at that in real life. I'm much better at that with my code, but that's a different conversation for a different time.
Yeah, but I think having that personal schema is so important because like even if you go to Awesome Copilot, you'll find that it seems like there's a lot of double dipping or intersection. And it just comes down to just doing what works for you and making sure you don't muddle them within your own workflows. Otherwise, it also just messes with how Copilot works.
Exactly. Yeah, there isn't necessarily one perfect prescribed do this that will work. This is my approach. This is where I think is a great starting point. And then you can start to evolve and build out from there. And then you as your team can then decide how you want to start to structure all of those. Okay, cool. All right. Let's kick back over here. So I've got all of my code here. And what we're going to notice is that it ran all of my playwright tests and everything else there, which is fantastic. But the kind of challenge that I now have is I now need to go in and test this, right? And I could do exactly like I did before. Like I could open up a brand new terminal, and I can open up the little browser window, and away we go from there. But I want to make sure that Copilot also has that ability as well to be able to do that. And this is where that Playwright MCP server comes into play. So let me go to the workshop here, just so that way I can get the, oh, actually I don't even need the, that's right. It's one of the really cool things. I don't even need the the syntax off the top of my head. I can just add it. So I'm going to go to settings here. And then I'm going to go to MCP servers. And then I'm just simply going to say add, scroll on down, and then there's Playwright. And then I just say add server, and that is now added in. So MCP servers, if you're not already familiar, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And it's one of those abbreviations where, honestly, I don't think that the name really is overly helpful. So it stands for Model Context Protocol. It's an MCP server. At the end of it, what MCP is all about is it's a standardized way for agents to be able to call external services. And that could be, say, like issues on GitHub. That could be your database. That could be things on Azure. And in this case here, it could be the Playwright server. And what this is going to allow Copilot to do is to actually interact with Playwright as if it was a user. So it's going to be able to actually go in and click things and so forth. So let me just make sure. I think I might need to restart Copilot app, but let me just double check. Can you use the Playwright MCP server yet? I might just need to restart. I can never remember if I need to restart or not. Wonderful. It is now available. Can you please use the Playwright MCP server to validate the functionality you just added? Boop. OK. So what this is now going to do is this is going to start the server for me. And then it's going to use that Playwright MCP server to interact with the site and make sure that everything behaves as expected here. Now, I love the Playwright MCP server for kind of two use cases. Number one, exactly what I'm showing here. Like it's done a thing, and now I just want it to go in and we can actually like see it legit, like just doing everything right here. And I might go in and choose how I want to like do my filters and so forth and so on. But it's actually going to be able to interact with my site right here. So I love it for situations like that. But where I also really like it is, let's say that somebody filed an issue, and that issue included repro steps, included reproduction steps. I can actually tell Copilot, hey, go look at this issue, go look at the repro steps, fire up the MCP server, walk through those repro steps, and validate that that is in fact a bug. It's absolutely wonderful that it's able to go in and do that. It's pretty remarkable. So it can then go in and do that. It will figure out, oh, okay, this is where it's failing, and then be able to start work from there. So I love it for validating new functionality, but I also really love it for validating, hey, we had an error. Now we need to go in and see what's actually going on there. So yeah. Pretty slick.
Definitely, and I love MCP tools personally because, I mean, sometimes when I'm working with Copilot, it will suggest an actual like tool to integrate with, but other times I just find it valuable to also just be aware of what's there in the world, or even just start a separate session and ask Copilot, hey, I want to do this. What do you suggest? Because otherwise sometimes Copilot can take a convoluted play, or I guess any agent can take a convoluted way to achieve that same task. It will do it, again, but if we're talking about cost optimization, knowing the right tool to pull from the toolkit and at what time really goes a long way.
Yep. There's two real quick ones on here that I want to highlight. Obviously, yes, there's GitHub. But the two that I want to highlight real quick are both Microsoft Learn and Context 7. So Microsoft Learn will be an MCP server to the Microsoft Learn website, which is all the docs for anything Microsoft. So if you're doing like anything .NET related, anything Azure related, anything Microsoft related, having that MCP server is an absolute must, because what that's going to allow Copilot to do is to go use that MCP server, go look through the documentation, and find the official word on how to do different things. That we've talked an awful lot about context here. That's going to bring in context. And then I also really like Context 7. This is a personal Christopher Harrison opinion. This is not necessarily a reflection of my employer or anybody else. But I really like Context 7 as well, because this sort of broadens that out to a whole bunch of other documentation sites as well. So again, that context is key. That can help out. And you'll also notice that a lot of different frameworks like Astro and Svelte and so forth also have their own MCP servers that you can go in and add. That if you just go out and do a real quick search, be able to bring them in, and away you go from there. Somebody was asking earlier about Jira. I don't think Jira's on the list directly, but there is a Jira MCP server. If your issues are on Azure DevOps, you'll notice that there is an Azure DevOps right here that I could go ahead and add in.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we're coming up at a few minutes, but there are a few questions which are good conclusions. So
Yeah,
I'll
let's
wait.
do it.
Okay, let's do it. So we had someone ask, let's say I'm planned implemented as per the agent and skill files. How can I replan and implement after making some changes to the agent/skill file? Well, we're in GitHub.
Yeah.
Everything is non-destructive.
Exactly, yeah. That if you've made any changes, you can just go right back and go, hey, based on this new information, go ahead and replan. But on top of that, your skill files, your instruction files, your agent files, those are typically going to become assets in your repository. So you mentioned, hey, we're GitHub. Like those then follow the exact same source control rules. That becomes part of your repository. That way you pull that down. Now all that's going to be available to you. That's there in perpetuity, and it also becomes available to the rest of your team as well.
Absolutely. And one more question was about Microsoft Purview and how it's not built into Microsoft Copilot. So will there ever be native integration? Well, see, that's the cool thing about canvases is that even though there's not current native integration, you could probably create a canvas to fulfill some of that functionality.
Absolutely.
So, go for it and actually add it to Awesome Copilot, because I'm guessing you're not the only one with that question. And this is actually a great way for our development teams to even know what people are looking for in terms of integration. So maybe you'll just create such an awesome canvas extension that, you'll see it a month from now actually natively built in.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Cool. All right, so I do want to just sort of highlight real quick two things. Do you want to bring up the slide real quick that has the short link for the workshop? Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and show that again. Perfect. That will be available in perpetuity, so you can go in and explore. And here's, I think, the two biggest tips that I can give. Number one, context. Context, it's so important that making sure that you provide good context is going to get you better code. It's going to get you better code faster. And on top of that, again, it's also going to help save you some tokens as well there, because it's going to avoid round trips, and it's going to avoid Copilot having to search out and find things. So context, it's number one. Number two is get in, play, and explore. That, when in doubt, ask Copilot. That if you're not sure if something works, try it. That, especially with everything being in work trees here, that I spin up all of these different sessions, all of these are completely separate from one another. So I can go in and I can try something here, I can try something here, I can try something here, and none of that's going to break any of the other work that I currently have going on. So when in doubt, just try it, play it. But check out that, and you can also find GitHub Copilot gh.io/app. And I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, every time I do these, I feel like I'm also learning, because this world is changing so fast, but I love the reminder, just ask Copilot.
Exactly.
I mean, there's just so much that's happening in the world of AI, and so many cool new ways to continue using these tools and technologies in a more effective and cost-efficient manner. Mm-hmm. But we have all the information we could possibly want right at our fingertips nowadays. So
we certainly do. Beautiful. Well, thank you to everybody for taking some time out of your day. And with that, this has been the Let's Learn with GitHub Copilot app. Thank you very much.